Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, June 28th. Mr. Pinio, do we have a need for non-public this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We do, under RSA 91A, 3, Roman numeral 2, lowercase c, 2 items, reputation.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of minutes of June 7th.
Yeah, I have a few changes. The first one is on page 2, last paragraph, second sentence. It should say RSA 674:1. So that's just a change there. Then on page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 one up from the bottom. The last sentence should say, my husband gave an easement to the New Hampshire Forest Society. And then the sentence before should say, the frontage on New Garden Road in Wolfeboro, at the end of that.
Okay.
All right? And that's all.
That's all?
Yep.
Okay.
I have one.
What you got, Brian?
On page 15, the bottom paragraph, it says, Mr. DeShays, when you mentioned 251 players, was that unique players or repeat players? Tennis, pickleball players counted the same. And then it should be Joe Santoro said, so he should be listed. If someone came 5 times, we counted them from 5 times. Number of pickleball players in summer will grow, so on to the end. So that was Joe Santoro's statement, not mine.
That's it?
That's all.
Okay. The only one I saw in here too was on the front page at the very top. It says an agenda. We should really read meeting minutes.
Yep.
So with those changes and additions, do we have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Have public hearings this evening. First one being the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing June 28th, 2023 at 6:30 at the Great Hall Town Hall in Wolfeboro regarding amendments to the Town of Wolfeboro Ordinance Chapter 112, Peace and Good Order, to add the following article. Article 3, trash cans, receptacles. 112-4A, no person shall place a trash can or similar receptacles at curbside or roadside between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. of the following day. 112-4B, all such trash cans and receptacles shall be secured from animal intrusion. And 112-4C, any refuse found on the ground around such trash cans and receptacles may be subject to further enforcement by the town. So we'll open up a public hearing on that. I don't, Tavis, did you want to say anything on this?
Tavis Austin, Planning and Development. Want to speak to? No, not necessarily, but I believe, at least at the last EDC meeting, there was some confusion as to what the board was looking for this ordinance to say. So what you have in front of you and what you just read is what I heard at the last meeting. And my recommendation is the board move forward with either the recommended motion that you have in front of you or schedule a new public hearing with revised language.
Okay.
Brad?
Yep, I was just going to see if there are any in the public while it's open, then we'll.
I just can address the fact that I was the one who made the comment at the EDC meeting. I was in error. I read the minutes, and this is exactly what was supposed to be on it. So
Okay.
It was me, and no, you're correct.
Regardless,
Clearing it up,
if
right?
the board wants it to be different, that would be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doug Breskin, 6 Longstack Lane. I'm not speaking for or against this, just looking for some clarification. I'm wondering if the policy, as you've stated it, would apply to both private and public roads. I was wondering if you could define what a road is. So, for example, would it apply to properties that are adjacent to town parking lots for trash cans that might be near a town parking lot? How curbside and roadside is defined, how close to the road, for example. If the trash can was 10 feet back from the road, is that still affected by this policy? And does it apply to both commercial and residential policies? So, for example, using Downtown Grill as an example, their trash cans are directly adjacent to the town parking lot. Would that be affected by this policy? And lastly, would this affect, since it says any person, would it affect the town trash cans that are around anywhere in town? Because they're often adjacent to the roadside. Thank you.
Okay, good questions. I don't know if we really have an answer to those right now.
Well, I would think it has to do,
We might have answers.
I hope so.
So as to town trash cans, no, this would not apply.
Right.
As opposed to properties that are zoned commercial, which have been through site plan review, they have a trash plan approved. So it would be incumbent upon the planning board to make sure that any trash plan comported with the regulations. I don't want to infer from the comments, but this would not apply to the current situation that may or may not currently exist, dockside parking lot. This is, at least was intended to apply in the way it's in, the way it was intended to be written was to apply only to the direct interface between a public road, private or otherwise, and private property.
But doesn't town ordinances affect everybody? Like, when we talk about the roads or we set this policy, it doesn't distinguish between resident and commercial. Our ordinances apply to all. Even though they may have a trash plan, we all know that people don't always follow their plan. So if a business took their trash can and had their trash person coming to pick it up in the downtown, this ordinance would affect it if it was there overnight, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, with any such law, this is effectively, if you were to vote yes, tomorrow forward.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So instead of no
So
person,
any commercial site plan that's approved that may or may not have trash cans at or about the property line would not be subject to this regulation.
Anything else earlier is grandfathered. We're all, yes.
For misuse of that phrase, yes.
Well, whoever is doing whatever plan they have today is not going to be affected, if you don't like the word grandfathered, with this ordinance does not affect them. It will affect people tomorrow doing something else, yes?
So hypothetically, a planning board application going to the planning board in July would be subject to this. Make sure that plan comports with this if this were adopted tonight.
Correct. But we're also interested in the person who doesn't pay attention to its trash plan and puts something out, and then this would apply to whether they're residential or commercial.
Perhaps the source of the question could be addressed with misuse of town property or trespassing or other things. So that's coordination between the non-blue and the blue on that one, as to which law is up. Now, this was originally drafted to address residential properties only. That was one of the early questions. Does this only apply in the residential areas? But you also have a number of homes in commercial areas in Wolfeboro, so I think you need this to apply town-wide.
It didn't, we no place did we write that it was residential, so it applies.
Correct. The original inspiration was a residential
Correct.
use type, but this was written for all properties.
Correct.
Correct.
is there a definition to curbside and roadside, a generally understood definition, or do we have to?
I don't believe one is necessary. Typically, when someone is coming to collect someone else's trash, it's either at the edge of their property or in the shoulder of the road.
Yeah.
So 10 feet onto the property, to go to the original question, that would not be a violation of this.
Because just, and I'm not arguing, my neighbor takes their barrels and puts them in the middle of their driveway about 50 or 60 feet from the road, and the disposal company pulls down their driveway, picks them up, and puts them in the back of their truck and goes. So therefore, when they're in the middle of their driveway, they can be there anytime, night, day, or anything.
Yep.
Let me rephrase, it would not be affected by this change.
Correct.
Because we use the word curbside, they could put it in the middle of their driveway?
Yeah,
Is that what-
I would estimate that 99.9% of Wolfeboro has no curb.
So,
So it's the private property meeting either a common interest in the case of a private road or a public interest in the case of a town road.
Most of the commercial pickup people that come around to get the residential trash are going to want it out near the edge of the road anyway, because they're not going to want to pull into every driveway. They want to go down the road, grab it, and keep going, so.
Correct.
Most of them are going to be out by the edge of the road, which.
I'm not a Wolfeboro resident. If my can is too close to the sidewalk, they won't pick it up. If the arm doesn't reach, it stays.
Yep.
In my situation, it just happens the disposal company comes down, that's the only house on the road they go to, so they use their driveway as a turnaround.
Yep.
They put their trash far enough down so that they can drive down, throw it away, drive away.
So if the board wanted curbside or roadside could be defined to the common line between the right-of-way and private property, but as a planner, that's what this says. For purpose of
I think
enforcement.
curbside's fine. I mean, I'm reading about it. That seems like a pretty traditional
Yeah.
term used for, especially for trash pickup, so.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to define it too close, then it's going to be up to trying to determine where the right-of-way line is, and, you know, if you got a, 33-foot right-of-way or 50-foot right-of-way, it could open up a can of
I
worms,
mean,
so.
depending on how fine it becomes, the enforcement arm of this, and Mark's ignoring this politely, is going to have a stick. When they show up on the road and they hold out a stick, it either touches the can or it doesn't to determine. I mean, I don't think that was the intent.
no, I think this says what we want. We don't want the trash out there. If the animals get into it, you're responsible to get it picked up, and that was the issue we were trying to deal with, and I think this one does it for me. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you don't want someone staying at an Airbnb that leaves on a Sunday.
Yes.
To put the trash out. The trash gets picked up Thursday.
Yeah.
And it sits out there for 5 nights, and 2 bears and 6
Yes.
raccoons get into it and drag it all over the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what we were after. And this, as far as I'm concerned, does it.
Is there any other public input on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Planning board members, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this.
Make a motion to adopt Article 3, trash cans / receptacles, as duly noticed and discussed.
Second.
Motion by Luke, seconded by Brian. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. One down. Next one. Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 6:30 at the Great Hall Town Hall in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, regarding amendments to the Town of Wolfeboro building permit fees. And that one is, here we go. Basically what it is, there are 3 fees that are being adjusted here. The electrical permits are going to go from $25 to $50. The gas piping permits would go from $15 to $50, and the plumbing permit would go from $25 to $50. All the other building permit fees are going to stay the same as they are now. I'll open up a public hearing if anybody has any questions on this. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Planning board members, any questions, comments? Seems pretty straightforward. We've been talking about this for a little while and stuff, so
Yep. Would you like a motion?
I would.
I move to amend the electric, plumbing, and gas permit fees to $50 as duly noted and discussed.
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Luke to approve this public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next one, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 6:30 at the Great Hall Town Hall in Wolfeboro regarding amendments to the Town of Wolfeboro Ordinance, Chapter 73, Hawkers and Peddlers, to amend Chapter 73, Hawkers and Peddlers. And we have some few changes in here. Under types of licenses for transient sales, we are adding some wording that says, let me just quickly start here. Holders of this permit shall not be allowed to vend from any public place in the town except areas as otherwise permitted by the Board of Selectmen as part of a special event permit. That's under 73-4A. And then under 73-7 limitations on A, we're adding, let's see, no permit shall be issued when the applicant's push cart, we're changing it from cart to push cart, exceeds 3 feet in width or 5 feet in length if applicable. And G, no cart, food trucks or other vehicles shall be left unattended. H would have all carts, we're adding food trucks and other vehicles to that. Under permitted areas, E, we're adding other town property as may be authorized by the Board of Selectmen as part of a special event permit. Expiration of license under 73-9A. A will read, all licenses shall expire upon expiration of any special event permit, or all licenses shall expire on December 31st of each year. And I think those are the changes I see in here. So I will open up a public hearing. If there's anybody in the audience, public, that wants to ask questions or comments. Hope I explained that enough so everybody understood it. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members?
I just have one question for, on the first page, under A, it says, holders of this permit shall not be allowed to vend from any public place in the town. So I have a question. If there's a private-owned parking lot in town, people can vend as much as they want from that private parking lot, or is
No.
that designated as a public place?
Chapter 73 applies only to town-owned property.
Properties, okay.
So the position that the department has taken moving forward is that any private property would be subject to the general zoning ordinance.
Okay,
So if it happened to be, I'll pick on you, if it had happened to be your property,
Yep.
it would be a non-permitted use in the district. You'd need a variance for the use, and then you would need site plan review for expansion of non-residential use of property. If you're commercially zoned property, you need to go to the site plan because the addition of a food truck is a non-residential expansion to that property.
okay.
So it's subject to site plan review.
So say a business that owns a parking lot decides they want to just put a food truck up for a day for an event, they have to ask for permission for that?
Yes.
Okay.
But a day for the,
I have been in consultation with the chair and vice chair of the planning board to see if the board wants to contemplate a modified review process for a food truck. But you have to recall, when it comes to commercial property, X amount of square footage begets X amount of parking spaces. So as soon as 1 or 2 or 3 food trucks come in, now the business technically is remiss that many parking spaces. Therefore, you have to modify the plan to accommodate it.
Linda?
yeah, but what we can in a temporary event that comes in, we can grant permission in that temporary event for a food truck to go in any venue.
On town property.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I know you know it. I just need everyone that hears it to hear the
It's
same
fine.
message.
No, that's okay. I just, that's,
And now, the reason I asked the question is to clarify.
Any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion on this one.
Make a motion to amend Chapter 73, Hawkers and Peddlers, as duly noticed and discussed.
second.
Motion by Luke, seconded by Linda. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next public hearing is Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 28th at 6:30 to adopt a petition to lay out new town roads policy. Mr. Pinio, are you going to talk to us about this one? or-
Sure. So we've been over this a number of times with the board. We've taken the comment from the board, made the suggestions. We've streamlined the bulleting format. I think we've got a good model here that lays out what the expectations for people would be when they come in to lay out a road going forward. It is still a lengthy process, but I think it captures the intent moving forward from what the petitioner's steps are right through public hearing and up to conditional layout contingent upon betterment assessments. So if you have specific questions, or if you'd like to go through it bullet point by bullet point, we can do that. But I think we've captured what the board was looking for here, and it'll certainly help the department heads when we have to go through these petitions.
Thank you. This time I'll open up the public hearing. If anybody in the audience has any questions or comments, or it's online with us. Nobody there? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Board members.
Yeah, I have just one question. Jim, where on the town website would somebody go to find this? Where we're going to put this? So I know there are a lot of associations with roads, and I would like it to be on the website in some place easy for them to find it.
So I think what we can do initially, once, if you so choose to adopt it tonight, we will mark it as adopted. And I think what we can do is we can put it on the website homepage, and under news, that should tag it to all departments. So it should be easily accessible. From that point, I think we can put it on both the Board of Selectmen's page as a Board of Selectmen policy. As well, we'll make hard copies available in the planning office or such.
Maybe
you.
it could go under forms too, because people go to that a lot.
Yes, the forms and documents.
Forms and documents, because then it'll be there forever.
We will plaster it over the webpage as soon as you guys.
Sounds like a good
And
plan.
I just have one question. Should we add a piece into it that says that it adds, if roadways, private roadways, are used by the general public on a regular basis, should that be a criteria that we look at also when it comes to accepting roadways? Say there's a private road that is used as a cut-through that lots of different individuals use to get from one point in town to another point. Should that be a criteria that we consider if the general public is getting use out of the roadway? Is that covered in here, or should it be something that we address?
I think that is covered, Brian. Let me just find it. I believe that there's a section that talks about the general benefit to the general population. I can't find it right now.
Yeah, I might have missed it or whatnot, or we talked about it and then we never added it. It could be. But, because if it is, say there's a road that's a private road that's built, and then they put another subdivision off of it or another roadway off of it, even a public road that comes off of it then, and that road continues to be a road that's used for the public to generally go through, the the private road that was private originally becomes almost used like a public road and will get the wear and tear and the traffic and so that creates kind of something that the town should look at and say, you know.
Well, I think you find, Brian, if a subdivision goes in off of a private road, then that subdivision would have to include upgrading and making that private road up to the standard to be accepted and used as possible public access into that development, so that would be automatically included in their presentation to the planning board and stuff.
Well, here's one that we can think of, Hemlock into John Rourke's neighborhood. Hemlock is a public road, correct? Right. And it goes into a private road. So now, necessarily is that subdivision now being used as a cut-through? Maybe and maybe not. But there are situations where a private road could be used by many, many people in general travel, and it's just something that, if that's the case, it's something that I think we should look at.
Yeah, I don't think that triggers anything as far as a town need, like a Class 6 road, and the town maintaining it. Just because people drive on it, everything I've seen in that, Hard Road to Travel book that I use for years and stuff, talks about the criteria and what constitutes a town taking them over, and just having public use on it is not one of the criteria, so.
Well, I'm thinking maybe it's something we think about, because I know that the Dudley Frank Goodwin Road Private Association gets Goodhue Boat, has their trailers going through with boats on a regular basis. There's lots of construction vehicles that go through on a regular basis. Town trucks go through there on a regular basis. Town trucks come on to check the hydrants in the association. So there is a lot of additional travel on those two roads.
So one of the factors that the Board of Selectmen must consider under 511, the public need for the road.
Okay.
So I think that conceptually captures if you have a through road that the general population is using, I think you can utilize 5.1.1.1 to
the public need for the road.
To address that, yeah.
address that.
Yep.
Okay.
And that would be on page 4 at the very top.
Yeah, I did read that one.
Linda, did you have a?
No, I was just saying is that I didn't know whether Brian was trying to say because the public needs it more, that road would be a priority over another road that came in for the town to accept. Is that one of the criteria for putting one road above another road when they come in? Am I correct, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this we would
that
apply to all of them, but I think that's the question he's asking us. And it may be something we as a board need to think about. And I don't know if we want to add public need. Will we set priorities based on public need? And I think that's the question.
And it, like Jim said, it looks like it's kind of captured there in 5111 there, so.
But it wouldn't mean if, let's say we get, Road A, Road B, and Road C, and we know we only can take in a certain amount of new roads, would B, the public use more than A and C, will we set as a priority B because of the use of the public?
Yep.
And I guess that's the question he's asking, and
Yep.
I don't think this gives us that priority, but I don't know whether we want to do that or not.
Yeah, well, this does give us the opportunity to deliberate on it and bring that up for discussion too, so. Any other questions or comments?
That was it.
Yeah, personally, I think we've been through this a number of times and stuff, and we've been, batting it around here for a while, so I would be in favor of adopting this as it is now, and then if we feel we need to, add some other language in at a later date regarding what we just talked about, we could do that then and stuff, but I think with the number of roads we got out there that are looking at us now, it'd be nice to get a policy in place and something we can hang our hats on.
I'm with you. I feel absolutely comfortable. We've hashed over this many times, and we get it, and it is something we probably should at least put on our agenda to talk about at a future time on whether we want to make any priorities of
I'll
roads
second.
as those all
I'll
come through.
second your motion, Brad.
Okay, I guess I made the motion to,
I guess you
to
did.
adopt
and
this.
He's already seconded.
and seconded by Dave. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's see. Next public hearing will be, Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 28th at the Town Hall, Great Hall, to consider a temporary event permit for Kingswood Regional High School to host a 3-on-3 basketball fundraiser on July 1st, 2023, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Fossfield Basketball Courts, permit number 2023-55.
Good evening. I'm Joe Farragher, contact person for that. I'm also the varsity boys basketball coach at Kingswood Regional High School. I apologize for last week. I wasn't aware of the entirety of the process showing up, so I appreciate you bringing it forward this week as well.
Okay, yep. Yeah, we tried to do it last year. Did you get enough turnout or participation to matter?
Yeah, we didn't have registration numbers to
it worth it.
make it seem feasible. I was out of town as well. I'm actually out of the country, and there was really no point person to try to get it going. So we're trying again, and I know we're getting it close. We're getting close to the date, but that's where we're at.
Yep. Okay, I'll open up the public hearing if anybody out in the audience has any questions or comments. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members?
Move to approve a temporary event permit for Kingswood Regional High School to host a 3-on-3 basketball fundraiser on July 1st, 2023, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Fossfield Basketball Courts, permit number 2023-55.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Luke. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Good luck. Hope the weather's good and get some turnout.
Yes.
All right. One more temporary event permit. Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen to consider a temporary event permit for New Hampshire Boat Museum to host a model boat regatta on August 26, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 95 Glendon Street off Bridge Falls Path, permit number 2023-22. This is basically a date change due to weather. They were rained out on their, when was it going to be? June 17th, it looked like. 7th to 17th is crossed out here. So they're moving it to August 26th. I'll open up the public hearing if anybody here has any questions or comments. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. This is pretty straightforward, just a date change, so. Board members?
Move to approve amended permit number 2023-22.
I'll second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Linda. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda is our bulk vote. We have a weekly manifest.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to remove B5 because I need to step down from that one.
B5,
Yeah.
okay?
.0 Pines. And I'll make that motion that we remove B5 from the bulk vote.
All right.
Second.
A motion by Linda, seconded by Luke to remove Point of Pines, item B5. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now I'd entertain a motion on the bulk vote minus item B5.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second by Dave and Linda to approve the balance of the bulk vote, items A through C. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now I would take a motion on B5.
So moved. Approved. B5.
A motion by Luke, did somebody
Second.
seconded by Dave to approve item B5 from the bulk vote as on a separate vote. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? An abstention? Linda abstains. Okay, there are no board or committee, get the right page here. Appointments under new business, approval of the Josiah Brown Scholarship Spring Awards.
So this was tabled from the last meeting. I'm not sure if Mr. Deshays received the information which he was looking for or not, but we have 6 worthy recipients in front of you. I believe the balance in that particular account right now is about $50,000. We're actually getting people applying for it now, so we've made some headway with that. Board's discretion as to what you'd like to do with it.
Linda?
Yeah, I did speak to Amy, and we have 2 of them who are repeating that we gave in the fall, and last time we gave 3,000, and if you do 6 times 3 is 18, that still leaves us 32,000, and from the treasurer's report, I don't think we received our allocation for this year.
Correct.
So I think very definitely that we can do the 3,000. I support this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Nope. Is that a motion, Linda?
I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Dave to approve the 6 candidates here. Should we read the names or?
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, so the names of the applicants and recipients will be Abigail Heald, Miriam Lambert, Dylan Palmer, Caitlin Folsom, Garrison Hendrickson, and Axel Plash will be the 6 students receiving the scholarship here. So congratulations to those kids. And did I do the vote yet?
No, you
Okay.
got the motion.
We have motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, next on our agenda is the pickleball tennis court rules.
Okay, so I believe you have a memo in front of you regarding this, outlining what the recommendations are from Christine. I do believe Christine is online this evening. Basically, she's recommending courts 1 and 2 have signs posted daily that specify when Parks and Recreation are using them, as they will be used for day camp and lessons through the USTA and Parks and Recreation, and then the rules on the back. Christine, do you have anything that you would like to add to this?
No, I just wanted to say that we will have the rules on the back. Actually, we're going to make up as permanent signs. Right now, we have them on like laminated paper. So we have them, but once we have the ruling, we'll put them on permanent signs. And then the other piece of that is we go down daily to change the signs for day camp. So we're in the process of doing the ones for day camp and tennis right now. And the ones we actually put the dates that day camp is in session, which is 7/5 through 8/18, Monday through Friday, and we blocked it off from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. because the lessons are in there as well with day camp. And it says on the sign, when not in use by day camp, they can be used, or some wording like that. I can get you the exact wording. So it specifies it is reserved for day camp, but when it's not in use, it can be utilized according to the signs listed above for tennis.
Okay. Yeah, it looked like, the items we went over there at our last meeting with Joe here were, you've incorporated those into our comments into this, Christine, so I think, to me, it looks good. Board members, any other questions, comments? I would entertain a motion to adopt these rules for the tennis courts down at the Foss Field.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda is discussion of Wolfeboro single-track bike trails license agreement.
So we need to schedule some time with a couple board members and members of the Single Track Alliance to finalize the negotiations regarding the license agreement to be able to utilize the properties, town properties for bike trails. In addition, the Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance would like to gain approval from the board to finalize work on the flow trail, and I believe they would also like to discuss with the Board of Selectmen an expansion of an additional trail, which I believe Brian had walked with Russ, how from the wastewater treatment plant and members of the Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance. I see that there are some of them here this evening. I believe in your packet you have received a proposal of what they're looking at for the expansion, and I'm sure that you can ask them questions and they will be able to hopefully answer them for you.
Hey, board members have questions, comments?
I guess I have one comment and concern here. What I would like, before we grant any more trails to be built out there, I want a site plan, and I want the trails on that site plan with some kind of GPS markings. And I want to know which ones are cross-country ski trails, snowshoe, and bike trails, and what trails are going to be used for cross-country skiing and for the bike. I get it, I can see it, I can see the new, but I don't know the different loops, and I don't know what part of one trail is cross-country skiing and is the bikes. And we had a temporary event permit. They saw this and they wanted to use I think it was the Abenaki Loop, and it went over onto private property. So I think we need official maps to designate where these trails are going to go before we grant any additional trails out there. One of the things that I found when I went out there, there were a lot of trails that I didn't know even existed from earlier maps that now are on this map. And I don't know if there are other ones out there, but I don't recall seeing free fall before. So I don't know if trails have been renamed or stuff, but I just think we need to have a map. We need to know where our wastewater treatment plant service roads are to the spray field. I want to know what are cross-country ski, and I think more than anything else, I want to know where we're using a trail jointly. And it looks to me as if there are some here. So those are my concerns.
I guess a question I might have too is, I see you said they're using Strava's heat map data by creating a custom, tile map service here. I wonder if that's got the ability to do the type of things you're looking for there, Linda. And I don't know if that can be, if Wolfeboro Single Track can answer anything along that line, or?
Yeah, in the site plan, I would also like to see some kind of design on how they're going to cross at least the one and maybe other snowmaking lines, because I know that they're crossing one now, and when we build new snowmaking for the cross-country ski association out there, when they build that, are there going to be areas that they have to cross over those too? And we don't want those pipes damaged. And I think we should see what the design is going to be of the new trails going in, especially when they also do something like when they cross two of our downhill trails, where they're going to have to carve into the downhill trails that have been there for a lot of years. And we should see what the design aspects of that is, how they're going to handle erosion, washout, things like that. Just something that, when they cut through something else. I know that there was talk when we walked out that they wanted to reroute a snowshoe trail, because the snowshoe trail cut through the, I think Screaming Eagle is the name of the flow trail. And so Chris was talking about, I want to move that trail.
Are you able to hear me?
I want to move that trail around so that it doesn't go through the flow trail. Well, that's something that I don't know who built that snowshoe trail, who's responsible for maintaining it, and if they should be informed that their trail is going to be moved. Their trail's been there for 50 years.
Hey, Brian. Can you hear me? This is Chris Dow.
Yes, go ahead. Is this Chris?
Yes, sorry. I didn't quite make it back from Boston. I'm stuck in Alton where I have service. What I was talking about is not a snowshoe trail being rerouted. That was part of a mountain bike trail. So we wouldn't reroute other people's organizations' trails. So I just want to make sure that that was clear. The mapping, why I articulated what I showed in there is that, to Linda's point, she's always been curious about where are the trails? What kind of use do they have? How do we delineate between everything? So I took actual GPS tracking that is aggregated across 2 years of data from Strava to underlie it underneath a base map called OpenStreetMaps. So with that, I was able to update the map that I drew for the presentation, the maps that exist in OpenStreetMaps, and also that are used by Strava and other systems. So those maps are about as accurate as you can get based off of aggregated data. So I think, which is being used for what, the key on the map itself does show cross-country ski, mountain bike, snowshoe, and if they're easy, medium, or hard or whatever. I think if there's ones that we want to call out as multi-use, I'm all for a cartographer or me or somebody else to add those kind of extra features. I think the one thing with free fall, that one used to be called freeway. And then I think you had mentioned there was an issue with the ski trail being called freeway. And I think it was just mislabeled on the map. So, some of these things we've tried to remedy based off of the previous meetings because, under our interpretation, if we provided a map that showed where all of the map trails were, and if we walked the trails with a member of the Board of Selectmen and somebody from the wastewater treatment plant, and kind of like we did all the steps which we provided, then we would be able to kind of move forward. So now it just seems like we're hearing more things to hold it up. So I'm a little concerned because, we have funding, we have people that are able to start the trails. So, if possible, I would like to not have to, have more steps to go through if we had already established the steps we needed to go through to get to approval. So, and I think the comment about what we need to do to cross the trails and mitigate any sort of runoff or crossing of the snowmaking pipes, all of that stuff, I thought we had agreed that, once we walk the trails and understand where they're going to go, that was step one, which we did with Brian and Russ. And then step two, before the construction fully happened, we would make sure that it was flagged. And again, everybody agreed that we were fine to go across and do that. I was told by Jim, I believe, that there was going to be somebody else to talk to in addition to Christine that was going to be managing some of the Abenaki stuff that could help with some of those decisions and approvals. And so I have not met that person yet. But again, I was under the assumption that would be part of the working process just to validate things as things started. So I just, would be hesitant to have to go through another set of steps if we've already gone through the steps that we thought we had to go to get the approval.
So there was a discussion, and I'm not trying to be persnickety, but there was a discussion where, Chris, you did say, I would like to move the snowshoe trail over to this location and have it loop up and around. And I said, okay, that's great, but make sure you talk to and get approval from whoever built that snowshoe trail or whoever maintains it. I don't know who maintains it. So it's just a courtesy to tell them we're going to move that trail. And anything that is built on town property, we always see what the finished product is going to look like before they put a shovel in the ground. So I think it should be pretty easy to have the main trail builders or whoever's going to build this for you to show us this is what it's going to look like when we cross over or through a snow-making line. This is what it's going to look like when we cut through an existing downhill trail or something to that effect. If you were going to build a bridge and you came to us to build a bridge across something, I think the town has the right to know what's the bridge going to be constructed of, what's its side, what's its dimensions, so on and so on. This is, I mean, we don't let anybody build on town property without having a set of plans in place that we know what's going to happen.
Right. No, correct. And that's why it's spelled out in the presentation of like the level of grade and the type of construction that would be done for each one of the trails. I think the comment about the snowshoe trail, we're not asking to reroute a snowshoe trail in this presentation, or, you know, so I think that's kind of something we can talk about later if somebody's deciding to move a snowshoe trail. You know, that maybe that was misinterpreted, but like, that's not the intention of what we're talking about for now. And so just to kind of get that out of the way. The other aspect of what it's going to look like, I think we did it. There is a kind of a secondary piece at the end that does show construction tactics. So again, we're not building a house, so I can't really give you plans. We did mark where the map is going to go. So I don't know, I guess if there's something specific that you're looking for, we'd be happy to provide it. But you know, again, I thought that we were providing everything that was being asked for, that's all.
It does show, Brian, on
It does show the
trail building techniques, which is the second to last page of the packet.
Right.
and I looked at that, but I wanted to make sure that that's what ours is going to look like, you know,
Yeah. So, Brian, I think to answer your point...
Could I just have you state your name to start with, please?
Oh, sorry, I'm Rudy Meyer. I'm on the
Thank you.
Wolfeboro Single Track Board. So I think to your point, Brian, that one section that Luke just pointed out is as far as trail building techniques, because obviously we do want to make sure that the trail where it's going to cross the bottom of freeway and those other trails on that side, you know, erosion, all those things are taken into
because of the mess we had on the other side already.
Correct. So that's all part of that, and that's why Chris put it in there. I mean, there isn't going to be an exact plan as to what it's going to look like. But it will be taking all those things, working with, you know, Chris or whoever the other person is at Abenaki will be strongly taken into consideration to make sure it, you know, it's right. That's the whole point.
I think the trail crossings, too, are a small portion of it. You know, if that's something, you could certainly go out. I'm sure Chris or one of the guys would have you come out when that's going on. We could see it as it gets done. And if there's any corrections that need to be made before the...
Right, and the same with any of the snowshoe, like the pipe crossings.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing, where we'll make sure that nothing...
That's what I would be, for me, like... All these guys are, if this does, when this does get approved, when the guys are out here doing it, it'd be nice to be able to, I'm sure for Brian, especially, and for maybe other board members, to you know, it's going to be a multi-week process, I think, to be able to walk it while it's going on.
Sure.
Linda.
Yeah, I guess I'll go back to the map, and I'll tell you why, Chris, and everybody, why I want a map. When I went out there, I was not able, I had another commitment to join Brian meeting with you, Chris, and I had gone out and spent a number of hours walking, and I never had seen First Flight before, Knockout. It wasn't on any of the maps that we did with
actually, no, Knockout was definitely on those maps earlier.
It is not on the map that we used, okay, when we were giving. I'm looking at what I received. It may have been there, but that's why I say I want everything on the map.
Sure.
You know, Free Fall was not there on here. I remember walking out and saying, well, I don't recall that trail. So if they're all on a site plan we know where they are, and that's my concern.
So is that something we need to produce for you?
We may need as a 10, we can do it too, but I
mean, most of the trails you're talking about have been there for a very long time.
But I want it on a map. That's what I'm saying. If they're there, I want to know they're there. I don't have anything that tells me they're than others putting together a site plan, and we get all the trails on it.
Yep.
So if somebody gets hurt out at Knockout, we know where and stuff to go. And without an official map, we don't have the ability to do that. And I don't want all of a sudden this other trail show up that we didn't know was there. That's why I'm looking for a map. I want to know what it is and where things are crossing over.
That map that you have in front of you is everything. I mean, I took many hours to make sure that every one of those lines is exactly where it should be. So,
and I don't know if you can't see it, Linda, because it's not in color.
No, it's not on the site plan. I don't know where our town boundaries are. I don't know where all this goes
isn't
together.
That something the town should
Well,
produce?
that's what I'm looking for. You may not think it's important, and I
No,
hear that from you.
I agree, but
That's my concern, and my concern is after walking it,
yeah.
and finding these trails that were not on any map that I had been provided before. You may have had them on other maps, but I, as a selectman, hadn't been provided with them. So that's my concern.
Sure. Does that, though, stop? I mean, because you're not aware, or there's not a map encompassing all, is that stopping this from moving forward because
I'm making
somebody
a
else hasn't
comment
produced
as a
map?
select woman of what I'm seeing and what concerns me.
Sure.
To my fellow board members, I'm not saying, oh, nothing can happen, but I really question whether we should expand trails if we do not have a map and know exactly where these trails are on a site plan. We should have a site plan for Abenaki, and we should have a site plan for the spray fields, and these trails should be put on those.
I think what has happened is a little culture shock because when this first happened, they built a trail down on the hill, and we went and we looked at that trail, and I think that as Linda has examined them and the rest of the board has, we've seen that there is a much more extensive set of trails out there, which is not a bad thing necessarily. I believe the first ones were put in somewhere between 2006, 2008. I believe is when it was started. And why permission was never asked. People just went out and started building trails back then.
Right. Well, that was way before we existed.
Correct.
So
it was way before I was here. It was way before,
yep.
A lot of things. But I think it's become a little bit of a surprise to some of the board members that there was that much stuff out there on the town property. Not a bad thing. It's just something that people need to get their head wrapped around.
If I could interject just a change, it seems like we're jumping the gun a little bit.
Brad, could you just identify yourself for the record, please?
This is Brad Helfer.
Thank you.
Speaking on behalf of Wolfeboro Single Track. This whole discussion's been about expanding trails, building trails, what we're going to do. This hearing started out with the town manager talking about the license agreement and how we were still going to negotiate that for several days or whatever it was. So really, we need to have the license agreement agreed to by the town without having to come back hearing after hearing so that we can now work on everything that has been discussed for the last 15 or 20 minutes. And in the license agreement, it says no new construction is going to take place without the written approval of the selectmen. And so we need the license agreement in place. I don't know if there's an issue with it. We've submitted it. We haven't heard any feedback. But if that is in place, now we can proceed with all these other discussions about maps, trails crossing, construction, seeing it, walking it, and so on.
Yes, Linda.
Okay, this is the one chance we as a board get to speak to each other about what's there. We can't do it any other place. It has to be done here in public I've walked it, Brian walked it. This is where we get to exchange ideas. That's what I see us doing before we sit down and do this agreement. Well, I guess it was a license agreement, because without that, we have no ability to talk to each other. So you may have to sit through us hashing out some of our concerns so that when we do write it, we don't get it here and then have this conversation.
But when the license agreement's in place, all of these discussions can still take place because they have to. But it's a start. And
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, Brad, on page 2 there at the top there. It says right on there, this license will propose, the licensee will propose any new trail construction on the properties to the Board of Selectmen for review and approval. No construction may begin without written approval from licensor. And then it goes on to talk about some more details there and stuff. So to me, it sounds like we probably want to, go through this, get whatever wording in and out of this that we need to get the license agreement done. And as these gentlemen have said, to be able to move to the next steps, which is going to be about the construction and the maintenance and of the different trails up there, to address those individually and how we're gonna do it. The crossings, issues with how to cover and cross a snowmaking line, and all that kind of detail would come later.
yeah, all of those are
After this
legitimate. All of those are
agreement.
legitimate concerns and things that we are willing to work with
Well,
the town on.
the last agreement had maps. That's why I started on maps. We put that on the back of it, the maps on what we were talking about, and that's why I went to this before we came to this agreement. There are maps in the back there. So, if we want to write it and then we come back and have the questions and have the issues, that's fine. But the issues are going to come up one way or another.
yes.
And I was just
absolutely.
trying to have a conversation, so I haven't talked to you about it, I haven't talked to Dave about it, I haven't talked to Luke about it. I'm just trying to
No, it's
get
fine.
that information out to all of us where we may want to take a look at doing that. I'm not against new trails. I just want to have it so we know where we are on this. And I'm not going to say, oh, no, because we can't do it, but I think we need to work this out, and we need to have better maps than this. And I know, Chris, you worked a long time, but I have no boundaries. I just am concerned that we need a more detailed map. So maybe if I saw it not in a little thing like this, it would work for me, but this doesn't do it for me. That's just one.
Yeah, Luke?
I think maybe the town should, regardless of what we decide here on this, I think the town maybe needs to get involved in the actual mapping too.
I have no problem. I don't care.
I think we should get involved in the mapping and figure out a way to have it done so that everything is, especially for public safety. We have a detailed map that if we got to deploy assets out there for a recovery or whatever emergency, we can get out there and do it.
It can be done so that it's on a computer and it is in layers, that you start with just the.
Yeah, I think my point is, I think I think
it's a town map too.
I think Chris and the group has done what they can do based on.
Correct.
There's a bunch of different trails there that have been there since, like you said, 2006. I think it's incumbent upon the town to take on some of this role. And then you mentioned something about the license agreement.
It is something now that the town's hand has been forced, because those are there, and now we're going to have to make sure they're maintained, make sure that it's understood where they are. So if somebody gets hurt, that fire and police can get out there at time. And I do have some changes for the license agreement, and I think that we should all look at this agreement seriously, and the board members should all ping Jim with any changes that they have. A couple quick ones that I had were that.
Well, I don't think we should be negotiating that out in public, Brian. No. If a couple of Board of Selectmen members want to sit with me and a couple of members of the group, the Single Track Alliance, and get this thing nailed out, I'm willing to do that. And I think that's going to be the better forum to do it than in public.
I think that's a very good suggestion, and we're more than willing to do that, and the sooner the better.
Well, as long as every board member has the right to give their recommendations for this license agreement, it shouldn't be just two board members
Well,
giving.
it would come back to us once the draft is done, ready. we'd all look at it before we adopt it or approve it. So everybody will get to see it, but it'll be a
Would there be a
smaller group
public
working
hearing
on
on
it
it anyways?
to develop it, so.
Wouldn't there be a public hearing on it too, or no?
We could if we wanted to.
Okay.
I think we did in the past do some public hearings on it. But I think we've got the answer from the public. They voted and approved the warrant article. I don't have any qualms about the public wanting this and us moving, and they gave us permission to spend the money. I have no problem, if we get this agreement and we have a map to go right ahead with it. That's not the issue I'm expressing here. I just want to have a good map. And I think the town and single track can put it together, but I think the public safety should have that. And I think we need to have all the trails that are out there. And maybe we have all of it on this one. I'd be more than willing to work on the license agreement if somebody else does.
I would too. I
Okay,
know
so,
that,
hold on a second. So we got 2 volunteers to work on this with Jim and representatives from the Wolfeboro Single Track. Brian and Linda would do that. Anyone else from the board want to be involved with it, or does that sound good to everybody?
2 should be enough. It's not a meeting then.
Yeah,
Yep,
I mean, if
yep.
somebody else really wanted to do it, I'd
Yep.
step down.
No, I'm good with what we got here. So Luke, you all set too with?
Yeah,
Linda
I'm just going to
Brian?
ask a question to the rest of the board, because I think this is where Chris is trying to get a question answered. I think him and the Single Track Alliance are trying to schedule construction with an organization that has the ability to do it. And I don't know, Chris, I don't know if you want to speak to that in your time frame, if that's what's, but I think he's trying to get stuff done this summer, and I don't know how comfortable the board is with that. If we can get, if we're going to continue to work on these other things, will we still allow him or the group to start working on these trails? I think that's what they're trying to do, so.
My personal opinion would be that I'm okay with maintenance on the existing trails. I think we've kind of said that before while we're getting this license agreement, but any other expansion or technical stuff of adding trails, anything like that, this license agreement would need to be in place first, I would think. That'd be the feeling of the
they
board.
already did the maintenance for this year out there.
Yep.
I don't have any problem getting to the business of getting it done. I don't see us dragging our feet out and not get it done. I would sit down and try to get it done, and we'll have to negotiate how we're going to get a map together.
Yep. So I think the step's going to be we have Linda and Brian willing to sit down with Jim and some representatives from the Wolfeboro Single Track to iron out the details of the license agreement, try and get that wrapped up and done, bring it back to the board for approval, and kind of move on from there. It's kind of the way I see it right here now. Did Chris, you just rolled in, so.
Chris Dow, Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance President. Yeah, I think to Luke's point specifically, yeah, I mean, we have people that can start August 1st. We have funding that, if this drags on another year, I don't know if it will be there. And that, I think, is the concern because, as we all know, we've been working for, a year and a half now to try to get these trails built. And we did ran in here. To get to the point where we had our trial period to just establish what was there. And then the next step now was to get maps and do all of the things and, walk with Brian, and we pointed everything out, and everybody has been saying, yes, this looks good, yes, this looks good, yes, this looks good. So for me personally, to get to this point and then now say, oh, wait, maybe we're not going to be able to build trails this year maybe this isn't the right place to have a personal emotion, but, it's very frustrating because I think we've been trying our hardest to do everything possible to get to this point where we say, okay, we've kind of checked every checkbox, we've done everything we've heard we should do, and now to kind of feel like they're getting hit the brakes again. So that's, I think to Brad's point and to Luke's point, if there's anything that we can do to kind of continue the pace and not just hit that hard stamp and say, wait, this year again is another just maintain the trails year, I would do whatever I got to do. If I got to take a day off of work and walk with somebody somewhere or draw another map, I think that's, I think we want to try to do anything possible to finalize that agreement and be able to build a trail, quite frankly.
I'm willing to work on it as fast as we can, but we need to, and we'll find a way to get a map. I don't think we're saying no to trails being built. If you need it August 1, we'll do our darndest to have that happen, but we do need a certain amount of stuff.
Yep.
Chris, since you've already done some of the mapping, I mean, do you know of a company that the town could pursue getting some more help with some of this mapping?
This mapping conversation is harder than you think. We tried to align our mapping with the Lakes Region Conservation Trust, and I may have mentioned this before, but they had used AmeriCorps volunteers, and when I wanted to maybe try to make the trail maps look the same, the people that had done it no longer volunteered there, and they didn't know how the maps were created, so that kind of just fizzled when I tried to go down that approach. There was somebody that did maps early on, and I forget the gentleman's name, but I think kind of the level of Peter Goodwin, yeah. I think probably and I don't know his skill set, and maybe he does better types of maps that I haven't seen, but I don't know anybody specifically. I've tried to figure it out, and that's why I ended up taking it upon myself to do some technical back ends, creating custom maps to import onto a software to then actually drag and repoint every single little point of the trails to get it as accurate as possible. Because I know, to Linda's point, right, where there's a lot of stuff out there. And quite frankly, when we were walking, even with the snowshoe trails, those just have people spray paint on yellow on the trees, and there's no signs. And so I think this is a great exercise, and we're trying to do everything we can. I can take what we've done and add another layer that shows spray field lines and different, like the property parcels. That's all fine. I think we could layer in decommissioned spray fields that Russ pointed out to us when we were walking out there. So there's plenty of other data we can add. So I think that's just additional stuff we can put in that's no problem.
So I have a question. Is this going to be an ongoing expansion, or do you have an end game? Do you know where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or is this going to be something where you're going to continue?
I want to be on my couch relaxing 5 years from now. To answer that, I don't know, right? I think what we wanted to try to do was, we knew a level of funding, we knew we wanted to finish the flow line, and we thought it would be really good to get another uphill climb on the filter bed side, so that traffic on the Tomahawk and Black Eye could be more downhill oriented, another trail up would be easier to climb up and be more uphill oriented. I think the thing that we would like to do is, as you look at Abenaki as a whole, and the snowshoe trails that exist, and the cross-country ski trails, and even, I think there was a comment when I was driving that I heard around the applicant that wanted to use the trails. The Beans are actually fine with people going onto their property and riding bikes in the summer, is what they told me, Liz Bean.
Yeah, but we can't grant permission to ride on somebody else's property.
But they also said it's an okay thing as long as you coordinate with them. So I think there's just a level of communication that, if there was something and they said it's okay, then hey. But I mean, that's not my decision to make. That's a conversation. So I think it's just, those trails exist on private property. There's the Abenaki trails, there's the snowshoe trails, there's the broader, I don't want to say problem, but the broader nut to crack here is that through mapping, through the communication between all the organizations, we're talking to the Wolfeboro Cross Country Ski Association, the snowshoe trail people have reached out to us and said, hey, don't take down our little yellow, diamonds. And we're like, we're not going to touch them, but maybe we could, as a whole, through the mapping exercise, figure out how to get those trails mapped and have signage that's very similar. And I think we talked about that, Brian.
How about a little yellow diamond with a pair of snowshoes on?
Yeah, no, and it's we talked about having some sort of thing that shows, whether it's a bike, a set of skis, a snowshoe, for what type of use that trail is for. Because if you walk up past the town building on the right, going towards the ski area, it says no bikes or no walking or something, but that's just for the winter, right? So in the summer, obviously, you can walk on that trail. So I think it's just a matter of cleaning some of that stuff
having
up.
a universal sign that has a picture on it of what that trail does, and that's what we talked about. You can have a pair of snowshoes on it, you can have a pair of downhill skis on it, you can have a bike on it, you can have a person walking on it.
And stuff
And then we know that trail, and make sure that trail only has one name.
Yeah.
That it isn't named, for a cross-country trail and a bike trail, and because this is something that the fire department did say to me. If someone gets hurt and they give the name of the trail that they're using in the winter to cross-country ski, but in the summer it has a different name for biking, it could make it so that they're looking in the wrong location.
Right. Yeah, and that's, I think, why, again, we tried to clarify all those. And it's funny because I think the cross-country ski it's something that's called like the climb.
Yeah,
and when we were talking initially, we were building the climb line, which ended up having a name, which is Toss and Cookies. And then this we proposed a new climb, but that's not the name. It's just, we'll name it, but it's effectively an uphill trail. Correct. I think that's a name TBD because I wanted to call it out. It's not going to have the word climb in it. So yeah, I mean, again, I think we're all for clarity and working together and trying to make this thing work as best we can. And I think that and the last comment I'll make is even alongside the term of the agreement, we took what was proposed and we all agreed to last year with the temporary agreement and tried to make it, have a little bit more legs of a longer duration, a little more, take out some of the stuff of you can only work on the flow trail or whatever it said, So again, happy to hear feedback and sit down and be part of that group.
Is there a time, like for our easements, we can only go 5 years. How long can a license agreement last?
I think that's all stuff we could work out in the license agreement. We don't need to sit here and hash those kind of details out tonight. So I think we've got it set up that Linda and Brian will work with Jim and representatives from Wolfeboro Single Track. I work through Jim to get some dates set up to sit down and get together and get this thing put together.
Do you have a date that works for you guys?
Yeah. Tomorrow, 6 a.m.
You'll be alone.
Tomorrow's the one day I have 10,000 things. The one day. So you can go to the 30th and I'm okay.
I think you guys can kind of communicate and come up with the time.
I mean, if Friday works, I can make Friday work.
Yep, I can make Friday work.
Okay. So have you guys get together and do that and put this together, when it's ready, bring it back and.
Friday? 9 a.m.?
9? Okay.
Friday, 9 a.m., down by my office.
Okay.
And Chris, could you just send me the scope of work that you have?
Yep. Yeah.
The proposed scope of work?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Do we have any other business tonight?
Oh, I do. I have a bunch. That's just what you.
Just in the nick of time. I was ready.
Yeah, I was going to try to put it on my calendar. The first thing I have is today we had the dash unit down at Back Bay pulling milfoil, and we need to find a place to park it overnight, and I would like permission from this board to allow them to use the docks at the railroad station to dock their boat overnight until they're done. I don't know whether it's going to be 2 days, 5 days, but it's very clear what kind of a boat it is. Not many people drive around with a dash unit on it. So I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen give permission for the milfoil dash unit to park at the railroad station docks until the job is complete.
Second.
Motion and a second to allow the milfoil group to park a boat overnight at the town docks by the railroad station. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Okay, the next one I'd like to tell the public that the Friends of the Library are going to hold a reception for the new library director, Allison Rutley, on Wednesday, July 12th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., and they're inviting the public to come in and see her. And I also want to remind the board and the public that tomorrow night at 5:30, there is an open house at the Pop Whalen Arena in which we're going to recognize donors, and also that there are flyers around town that will tell you what's happening over this 4th of July weekend. And for all those people who have young kids, Wildlife Encounters will be here Monday, July 3rd at 1 p.m. Up here in the Great Hall. That's always a pack. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Committee reports. We'll start down at this end tonight with Dave.
None.
Okay. I've had none in the past week also. Linda?
Yeah, I have had a meeting with the Friends of Pop Whalen. On Monday, I went to the Lakes Region Planning Commission annual meeting. Dave, Brad, and I, we all looked at the stump dump the other day.
That's right, we did.
That's all I
true.
have.
Luke?
We had a ZBA meeting Monday night where the Harriman Hill Phase 3 was presenting, and we're going to meet again in early July and hopefully get that complete.
Ryan?
We had a long, fun budget committee meeting.
Actually, I take that back. I did have one meeting. We had a bid opening yesterday for the sewer line extensions on Forest and Sewell Road and stuff, so sure Jim will be reporting that in his town manager's report, which is next.
A couple of items. First, Chuck Smith is on board. Chuck is going to be working as the Director of Operations for Pop Whalen Ice and Art Center and the Abenaki facility. I will be looping him into that conversation Friday morning. I think he can help us with the mapping of the trails out to that location. So that is one item. This board is aware, we'll make the public aware. We've got a number of projects which are coming up, one of which is the sewer extensions. We're in the final stages of picking a contractor for that. I'll have that announcement at your next meeting. It looks like we'll be starting that project in September for those sewer extensions. So we have those sewer extensions teed up. We're getting to the 90% design at the Laner Street sewer pump station. So we're getting really close to the engineering firm putting out the request for proposals for construction. We're hopeful that we'll start in the September-October timeframe. And then Mill Street is about 60% design. That project is most likely going to get into construction next spring. With that said, everybody's plates are full as we don't have a town engineer on board. We'll be using Brad Harriman in a limited part-time capacity to manage those 3 projects going forward. So thank you, Brad, for taking that responsibility on and taking a little bit of the load off of Steve Randall and myself. That should be helpful as we get into CIP and budget season. As Brad said, we've had a couple bid openings over the past week. I anticipate getting that information out to you. We're doing some final evaluation on those bids. The other one that was opened this past week was ambulance bid and fuel bid. So those are all under evaluation, and that's all that I really have at this point.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Questions from the press?
Oh, yeah. Dave just wanted me to remind everybody, town offices are open Monday and Wednesday, closed Tuesday for Independence Day.
All right, thank you. Questions from the press? Alyssa, are you with us?
No, I don't have questions. I'm looking forward to the July 4th festivities.
Yep, sounds good. Public input. Oh, go ahead. Anything else, Alyssa?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Public input. I'd entertain a motion to go into non-public then.
Says he wants to go home.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes, yes, aye. Thank you, everybody.